Imagine standing in the heart of London, surrounded by hundreds of screaming, angry people. The air is thick with the smell of spilled beer, smoke, and flares. Suddenly, a sea of hostile fans spots a lone man. They do not see a fellow human being. Instead, they see an enemy. They start chasing him down the street, their shouting turning into a terrifying, unified roar. He runs for his life, with only a thin line of police officers preventing a literal street lynching. This is not a scene from a Hollywood movie. This happened on the evening of July 15th, 2026, right in central London. What turned a football match into absolute chaos? And how did a simple game push people to the brink of tribal violence? Before we dive deep into the dark history, hidden details, and the sheer panic of that night, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. By subscribing, you help us bring you more in-depth investigative reports on the stories the mainstream media often glosses over. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update on this developing investigation. The viral video of England fans chasing a lone Argentina supporter through London represents a deeply unsettling shift. For weeks leading up to the historic 2026 World Cup semifinal, authorities on both sides of the Atlantic warned that this was the single highest-risk fixture of the entire tournament. But while the eyes of the world were focused on the high-tech security measures inside the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia, the real explosion of hostility took place thousands of miles away on the streets of London. This story matters right now because it exposes a raw, unchecked undercurrent of nationalism and anger that is bubbling just beneath the surface of modern society. It forces us to ask how easily sport can be weaponized and how quickly civilized streets can regress into mob rule. But here is where things get disturbing. To truly understand why the sight of a light blue and white striped shirt could cause a near riot in Leicester Square, we have to look at the decades of baggage these two nations carry. The rivalry between England and Argentina is not just about football. It is deeply political and historical. The most obvious flashpoint is the 1982 Falklands War, a brief but bloody conflict over the sovereignty of the islands the Argentines call Islas Malvinas. Over 900 lives were lost, and the wounds of that military campaign have never fully healed. On the football pitch, this geopolitical tension has been played out in dramatic fashion. Who could forget the 1986 World Cup quarterfinal, where Diego Maradona scored his infamous Hand of God goal, followed minutes later by the magnificent goal of the century? For generations of English fans, that match was a historical theft. For Argentines, it was poetic justice. Every meeting since, from David Beckham's red card in 1998 to friendlies in the mid-2000s, has been treated as a surrogate battlefield. In the days leading up to the 2026 semifinal, political rhetoric flared up yet again, with Argentine officials reigniting claims over the islands. The stage was set for a collision, but what happened next raised serious questions about how prepared police forces actually were. The terrifying viral footage. On Wednesday, July 15th, 2026, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta was packed. Hundreds of miles away, pubs across central London were filled to the brim with tense fans, heavily consuming alcohol as they watched the broadcast. Tension was already high globally. Just days prior, reports had emerged of Argentina fans burning the Union Jack on the outskirts of Buenos Aires, while rival Argentine fan groups clashed violently with each other in Atlanta. Inside the London pubs, the atmosphere was a ticking time bomb. The match was agonizingly close, with England fighting desperately to reach their first World Cup final since 1966. In the dying minutes of the game, Argentina struck, scoring late goals to eliminate the Three Lions and shatter the dreams of millions of fans. As the final whistle blew, grief quickly morphed into alcohol-fueled rage. Hundreds of angry, dejected fans spilled out of London venues into Leicester Square and surrounding streets. At approximately the same time, a lone supporter wearing an Argentina shirt appeared in the area. Within seconds, the crowd spotted him. This is the part few people are talking about. The mob did not just shout insults. They actively formed a hunting pack, pursuing the isolated supporter down the concrete corridors of London. Viral video clips show a terrified man sprinting for safety as a large group of men chase him, hurling cups, shouting threats, and closing the gap. Metropolitan Police officers, who had been deployed in anticipation of potential trouble, had to act instantly. They rushed into the fray, forming a protective physical barrier around the Argentine fan, putting their own safety on the line to escort him into a nearby secure building. When you look closely at the footage and the official statements, a number of deeply troubling questions begin to surface. Why was a lone rival fan walking directly through one of the most concentrated gathering spots of drunk, frustrated England fans immediately after a historic defeat? Was it a deliberate act of provocation, or simply a tragic mistake by an innocent tourist unaware of the sheer scale of the rivalry? Some online commentators have claimed that the video does not show the full context, suggesting that there was an altercation before the cameras started rolling. However, no evidence has emerged to support this theory. Why did the Metropolitan Police, who are highly experienced in managing football crowds, fail to establish effective containment zones in central London when they knew the match was designated a maximum risk event? If international agencies had warned about potential escalations, why were London's local high-traffic areas left so vulnerable to spontaneous mob violence? These are the inconsistencies that the authorities seem eager to brush under the carpet. But what happened next raised serious questions about the hidden forces driving this aggression. The fallout from this incident extends far beyond a viral video clip. Socially, it highlights the persistent, toxic link between football, heavy drinking, and xenophobia. Despite years of campaigns aimed at cleaning up the image of the game, the moment a high-stakes defeat occurs, the old, destructive patterns of behavior re-emerge. Economically, businesses in central London are left to pick up the pieces, facing property damage and a loss of tourist confidence. Politically, the incident has reignited sensitive diplomatic conversations, with Downing Street recently rejecting Argentine sovereignty claims and asserting the rights of Falkland Islanders. These street-level clashes are not occurring in a vacuum. They are a physical manifestation of high-level political posturing. It shows that decades of historical trauma can be triggered in an instant by 90 minutes of sport. This is a pattern we have seen in past tournaments, where public spaces become hostile zones following national team defeats. The public reaction has been incredibly polarized. On social media, millions of people watch the footage in disgust, condemning the actions of the mob as an international embarrassment. Many pointed out that the vast majority of traveling England fans had behaved exemplarily throughout the tournament, only for a group of people back home to ruin that reputation in a single evening. On the other side, some online factions attempted to defend behavior, claiming it was just passion, and that the Argentine supporter was looking for trouble by wearing his shirt in that specific location. Mainstream media outlets quickly picked up the story, with commentators calling for stricter policing and harsher penalties for those involved in public disorder. Meanwhile, official fan groups have expressed deep concern, fearing that such incidents will undo years of hard work spent trying to prove that the dark days of football hooliganism are firmly in the past. But here is where things get disturbing. In the wake of the viral scandal, the Metropolitan Police have launched an investigation to identify the key instigators seen chasing the fan in the footage. Utilizing extensive closed-circuit television networks and public social media uploads, facial recognition technology is expected to play a major role in tracking down those responsible. We are likely to see arrests and potential football banning orders, even though the incident occurred far away from any actual stadium. There are also growing calls for government to review how major sporting events are policed in city centers, with suggestions of dry zones where alcohol sales are restricted during high-risk matches. However, implementing such measures is incredibly difficult and faces massive pushback from the hospitality sector, which relies heavily on matchday revenue. As the dust settles on the World Cup, we are left with a stark reminder of how fragile our social fabric truly is. A game of football, meant to bring people together, instead became a trigger for primal tribalism and hatred on the streets of London. If a simple sport can turn ordinary citizens into a hostile mob chasing a single stranger, what does that say about our collective psychological state? How close are we, at any given moment, to letting historical grudges and alcohol tear down the walls of modern civilization? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Was this just a minor incident blown out of proportion by social media, or is it a warning sign of a much deeper societal decay?